Hello and welcome to Emotions Part 2. On emotions, we're going to look at this time how we detect emotions in other people. So looking at someone and saying, you look sad, you look happy. We looked at these a little bit with our advertisements. And then also how we express emotion. So how can you express, or how do people express things that they are feeling? So not just things in their brain. Remember, we can talk about that can be sad or happy and not have that expressed, right? It can be a change in our brain. But expressed emotion means that I can see it, I can hear it in your voice, or I can see it on your face that you have this emotion. So let's start with detecting emotion. So detecting emotion, again, a couple concepts here that aren't necessarily referred to as vocab terms, but that you absolutely need to know about. So let's start out first with looking at this study here. There's a study done with emotions in other people, and they wanted to know if two people that did not know each other, if they stared at each other's hands versus stared at each other's eyes, if there's a difference in the way they felt afterwards. Okay, so what they did is they matched two random people together and they either stared at their hands, super awkward, or they stared into each other's eyes, gazing into eyes. And what they found is that random couples that were gazing into each other's eyes actually had different emotions than the people that were gazing at each other's hands. Again, they didn't know each other. So they started to think that their eyes have something to do with that gazing effect can be attached to making emotions. Okay? People who are in love tend to gaze in each other's eyes a lot. All right? This is nothing new to us, I guess. Like they have these kind of classic examples of people who are in love, people that are happy, people that are sad. And we're able to detect emotions in people's eyes versus things in their hands. Silent films. Before there was any audio component to films, they were silent. So this is a snapshot of a silent film. We're still able to tell what's going on even without words. We are also able to, for number 3 here, distinguish emotions from other languages. So we're able to listen to something in a different language and we can tell they're happy or they're upset even if we can't see their faces. Okay, so we're able to detect emotions from things that we hear. And we're able to detect emotions in the tone of voice. You know when your mom's kidding around versus when she's serious. There's a tone of voice that changes when emotions change. Now, this is because so we're able to detect emotions from other people because those changes in our voice and the changes in our facial muscles are very hard to control. When someone is really angry or really happy, it is difficult to control the facial muscles. Now, we'll look at this later, but men are a little bit more, have less expressive facial muscles than women do. But your facial muscles are hard to control. And that's what makes emotions, true emotions, easy to detect. And so technology, I kind of like adding this little piece in down here. Technology plays a part in emotions is that when you talk to someone on the phone, you are able to still express emotions with your tone of voice or your language, inflecting up and down. But with technology, text messaging and emails, there's really been that component taken away from communication, and hence the birth of the emoji. What's it called? The emojicon? No, emojis. Oh, I'm so nerdy. I have no idea. What is that called? The happy face, the face, or the winky face. You need to know what those mean, or you need to put them into a certain sentence to make sure the wrong message is not being conveyed. Okay, we talked about the difference versus men versus women. And now the last your vocab word for this slide, emotional contagion, refers to the term or the experiment that was done that when someone is talking to us in an excited voice, or someone's really sad, or someone's angry, we automatically, without thinking about it, tend to imitate other people's facial expressions. I find myself doing this when someone's talking about something concerning. I tend to put my nod along, right? Without even being consciously aware that you're doing that. So, and that tends to intensify the other person's emotions when they see it on your face. Okay, so you're feeling the same way. All right, let's look at faces now. We're first going to look at the nonverbal cue of the Duchenne smile. So this was an experiment done with looking at eyes and smiles. So I want you to identify this person right here and see, so it's the same person, which one of these two people is happy or smiling. And then You can go like this, and I'll move it for you. Ready? And there you go. They both are actually smiling, but you probably said that this person here was the one that looked happy. And that's because when we're faking a smile, our eyes don't look the same as when we are truly happy. So in here, this is a fake smile, so a Duchenne smile. And this is a truly happy expression, right? And you can kind of tell this sometimes, especially when you really know people, if that's their fake smile or their true smile, all right? So we're able to detect emotions by looking at someone's eyes. Hard to control facial muscles. Let's look at gender and faces. So again, I want you to ask yourself two things. What is the emotion being expressed, and what is the gender of this person? So what is the gender? Are they a boy or a girl? And what is their emotion? If you're anything like people that psychologists tested, you probably said that this person was angry and a man, and this person was a happy woman. Now, the weird thing is that these are gender neutral faces. So look at that. So what they did is they purposely compiled gender neutral faces, and then they either gave them aggressive eyes over here, this is my aggressive eyes, or happy eyes over here. And what they found is that most people were likely to put the label of man and aggressive or angry on this person, and female and happy on that person. So if you go back just a little bit, if I undo the clear there, let's look at them right here. And if that's all you see is their eyes, you tend to see this person is female, this person is male, when in reality they're gender neutral. All right, something to think about. Okay, so let's look at the difference and more difference between men and women. Very interesting as far as expressive emotion. So here is men and women watching different types of movies. So I want you to look down here. This is their film type. So they're watching a sad movie, a happy movie, or a scary movie. And what they were measuring was the number of expressions, different expressions that were on the faces of either men or women, right? So during sad movies, women had one expression, or I'm sorry, in between, like one, this doesn't even make sense. This must be an average because you can't have 1.5 expressions. But women, just below 2 is the average, but still tended to have more or different facial expressions than men, but pretty low. Happy, though, they showed over 10 or 11 different types of expressions on their face versus men exposed about 7. So watching a happy film, laughing, funny, good, there was a big difference in the amount of emotion shown. And then in scary movies, again, men, very little facial expressions, and almost probably the same facial expression as sad, and women showed more. So what we can take from this chart is that women have more facial expressions for their emotions than men do. Okay, so they're literally the way their faces are constructed, the way their muscles are put together, they have less facial expressions for the same emotions. So men have less facial expressions for the same emotions than women do. This makes men harder to read, right? Their facial expressions. It's not like what I want to say, quote put out there, but men's faces are harder to read because they have the same expression for a couple different emotions, and they have less expressive faces than women do, versus women might be easier to read their faces. Okay, actually let me go back up here. Who would make a better poker player then? If I'm playing poker with a group of people and I'm trying to hide my happy feelings if I get a good hand, or I'm trying to hide my scary feelings of not like winning, men tend to be better poker players, not necessarily players, but face-wise, right? So having a poker face means like you can't read their expressions than women would. Again, let's see if you can match up some culture and emotional expressions. So expressions tend to be, ubiquitous, or the same among cultures. So even in different cultures, people most of the time can identify these things: disgust, fear, anger, happiness, sadness, and surprise on the faces. See if you can do that. So pause the screen and see if you can match that up. Our biopsychosocial approaches to emotions. So let's actually go through those in our notes and take down and take down notes on these. So the biological influence of emotion then are going to be our physiological arousals, evolutionary adaptiveness to reacting to certain situations, right? I lose my kid, I need to pump myself up to go find them. I need to be afraid of losing them. The brain pathways we talked about in our last notes, and then the spillover effect, right? That those emotions tend to build up on each other and then spill over into the next event. The psychological influence then is going to be our cognitive labeling. I feel angry, I feel afraid, I feel happy, and then gender differences. So the difference between men and women. And then socially, cultural influences on emotion, expressiveness, so how much that emotion is being expressed, the presence of others often intensifies our emotions, and then the cultural expectation that might go along with whether or not you're allowed to feel emotions or express emotions. Okay, let's look at one more thing, the effect of facial expressions. This woman here, I want you to look at the direction that her eyebrows are pointing. So these are meant to show which way this muscle. So this looks like a relaxed face, like the muscles right here are pointing this way. When there's a look of anger or confusion, those muscles tend to turn in, so they're pointing this way or down. Okay, and this is called facial feedback, and the definition is coming up here. So facial feedback refers to the effect of facial expressions on experienced emotions. So facial expressions tend to intensify the emotions we feel. So if someone is angry and they look angry, it tends to intensify the feeling of anger. If someone is happy and they look happy with their facial expression, it intensifies the feeling of happiness. Okay, so that's going to be the effects of facial expressions, facial feedback. So what is our face doing to amplify that experienced emotion? Okay, in our next set of notes, we're going to look at experienced emotions. All right, so for these notes, make sure you know how do we detect emotions in other people, difference between men and women, a couple of vocab terms, right? So the facial feedback, and then the contagious or the emotional contagion. Okay, have a good night.